Hello and welcome to this special interview with Prashant Kishor. He is a master strategist who has helped Mamata Banerjee win West Bengal with a landslide. And not just that, he has advised a whole long list of chief ministers and other political personalities. So, Prashant Kishor, welcome to this interview.
Thank you.
Now, let me begin with a tweet that you have done recently. And I'll just read this out, and I'm quoting directly from it. The idea and space that the Congress represents is vital to a strong opposition. But Congress leadership is not the divine right of an individual, especially when the party lost more than 90% of the elections in the last 10 years. Let the opposition leadership be declared democratically. So let's analyze the statement. You seem to be attacking the Congress leadership, not the Congress party itself. What prompted you to make this tweet?
The idea is not to attack anyone. The whole debate in last few days and weeks about whether an effective opposition means opposition with Congress or without Congress. And my statement, in my tweet, I'm very clear that the idea and the space that Congress represents or supposed to represent is vital for opposition, an effective opposition in this country. But Congress party, the idea or the space they represent is not same as the Congress in the present formation under the present leadership. And what I mean by this is that under the present leadership, Congress has not done very well. And I have put the data for the people to see themselves. In last 10 years, more than 50 elections, state and general elections, if you combine that together, Congress has lost almost 90% of those elections, except for 2012 Karnataka, 2017 in Punjab, and 3 elections which they won, which is Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan in December 2018. Out of these 5 elections, Congress has not won any major state or any general election since 2012. What does it tell us? It tells us even somebody who doesn't understand necessarily politics and this space should be able to understand that there is something fundamentally wrong the way Congress has organized itself in the present context, the way they approach elections, the way they engage with people. There is something wrong. And I'm saying that, and I'm not suggesting that leadership of, I'm nobody to suggest who should be the leader of Congress. I'm saying let it be decided democratically, rather than someone just saying that XYZ would be the president. And certainly not when Congress alone, and again I'm referring to the formation, the party alone is not the full opposition. You have other parties as well. So let them decide together that who should lead it. What is wrong in it?
Now, you had mentioned that the Congress did win recently. You mentioned some of the states that they won, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. This is under the leadership of the Gandhi. So why would you say, given the fact that earlier, yes, they had ruled from 2004 to 2014, there was a huge blowback to that, and they are recovering ground. Why would you attack the leadership? Because they can demonstrate. Rahul Gandhi can say, look, we won these 3 states in the midst of a Modi wave that swept the country.
Well, again, I repeat, my idea is not to attack anybody. But again, I take you to the Congress's performance over the last 10-20 years, which is the time horizon related to the present leadership. When you look at Congress, last time a lot of people think that Congress's decline is a recent phenomena. Actually not. Congress, last time they have won this country was in 1984. After 1984, for your viewers, it's very important to understand. After 1984, Congress has not won a single general election in this country. Yes, they have ruled in the interim for 15 years, once as a minority government and twice as a coalition government. But as a party, they haven't necessarily won the country. I give you an example to make it clear. Like in 1989, generally people think Congress lost in 1989. Number of MPs that Congress won was 198, if I recall correctly. In 2004, everyone thinks that Congress won. But actually, Congress won 145 MPs. So as a political party, their decline is secular.
Except in 2009, they went up to 200 and above.
But I tell you, even in 2009, even though the number of Lok Sabha seats that they won went up marginally, But a better gauge of a political party, to my mind, is look at the assembly constituencies where they are either winning, they are the winning party or they are number two. And out of 4,000 odd constituencies which we have in the country, I'm talking about the Vidhan Sabha, Congress at its peak used to be number one or number two in close to about 3,500 assembly constituencies. Today that number is down below to 1,600. And that's a one-way decline, and especially after 1985, this graph has been one way. So what I'm saying is the decline in Congress is not a temporary phenomena, definitely not linked to an individual or an episode. It is far more deeper, it is structural, and any revival plan, if there is any attempt to revive, has to take care in these factors in account. Otherwise, you would be doing a job which would not get you the result. That's my take. You can disagree with it, but the idea is to just put the fact on the table.
After you tweeted, one of the charges that people have made is that, look, you were in talks with the Congress to advise them on their strategy. Since it never worked out, this is now a kind of a vengeful retribution that you have been, now going on the attack because you can't work with the Congress anymore.
I did not invite myself. Nobody, in fact, can invite themselves to the House of Gandhis or the leadership of Congress and say, okay, please come and hear my strategy. I did not do that. I was genuinely, in all my honesty, they asked, we engaged, and I said what I thought is the right approach. They are within their right to accept or reject. There is no problem with that. But I am within my right to do what I think is right. I have been in talks with Congress leadership since last 2 years. Most of these leaders or those who are feeding media, they are not even aware. But those things are not important. What is important is, yes, the fact is I was in conversation with Congress after post-Bengal election in a much more structured, intense or engaging manner. But, and we suggested few things. They were, by and large, there was consensus. I must tell you, I almost joined Congress. So there was not that much disagreement, but for few issues on which we realized that they're coming together, rather than it is of being of help, it could be counterproductive for both sides. And we amicably decided, okay, no problem, you do your job and I'm free to do my job. So there's no acrimony at all.
What needs to be done for the Congress? Since this, you say, is a space that needs to be garnered, what needs the current Congress, supposing they don't ally with anybody, what do you think needs to be done?
Well, this is not something which can be articulated here in a short interview, but definitely they need to change the structure, the way they are structured as a party, the way they function, the way they take decisions. I give you one example. Congress president position. Forget about the complicated issues. A political party of a size and a scale and the legacy like the one we have, the Congress is, they functioning with an interim or a president or a stopgap arrangement for 3 years. Is this a very smart move? Do you need a Prashant Kishor or for that matter anyone to come and advise? You know that it's not the best move. If whoever you choose, you should have a full-time president.
You've seen the leadership all across. What do they need to do now?
See, I don't want to be prescriptive. I'm nobody to suggest publicly what Congress should be doing. But I can only say what is already in the public domain. They need to sort out their leadership issue. They need to have faster decision making. They need to empower the local leaders. They cannot centralize the entire decision making and keep in the hands of few individuals in Delhi. India is too big and too vast to have all the knowledge and expertise centralized in the hands of few individuals in Delhi. If you look at the glory days of Congress, those days Congress was not necessarily run by quote-unquote this set of general secretaries or secretaries who sit in Delhi. They were strong because they had a very strong regional leaders. I'm not saying they are not having regional strong leaders now. And the system, the way Congress works, to the best of my understanding, whatever little I have observed, that the real power is centralized in the hands of general secretaries and what people call party high command. That at times is the biggest stumbling block in any real revival of Congress at the grassroots.
Now, if you come to what Mamata Banerjee said recently, that the UPA is dead, and there was almost a direct attack on the fact that someone was going abroad. In politics, you need to be engaged continuously. You can't go off abroad. Is the UPA dead? Is she right in saying so?
Well, what she said, only she can explain, but it's logical that UPA is not a UPA was brought in existence post 2004 to form a government, to run the government. It was not an arrangement to have a political coalition in a situation when you are not in government. And even if assume that it was for both, it has been almost 15, 16 years. So probably it's time to relook at its formations, its functioning, its because components have changed. Many who were part of UPA have gone out. Many who were not part of UPA have come in. Dynamics have changed. So you cannot have a UPA as it was in 2004 and keep on saying that the same formation exists with the same components, same mechanics, working mechanics.
So you're saying it's outlived its usefulness?
I'm not saying, I'm saying it need to be re-looked at least the way it is. If there is a need for an UPA, that need to be re-looked at.
And
the formation of it.
Sure. I'm coming back to that. You talked of the divine right. No individual has a divine right to live. Clearly you were talking of a certain dynastic predilection that the Congress is.
No, this is something which widely is speculated. It's not directed towards an individual. My point is simple, that as a leader of the political party, if you take the credit when the party wins, world over, democracies, when you lose, you step aside and you let somebody else come and fight. Have we seen a US president, potential US president, losing the election and then continuing to be the challenger for all elections to come? You can have one chance, you can have two chances, you can have three chances, but how many chances you need? And if for some reason it is not working, whether it is for right reasons or not, that's a different debate. But for some reason, if it is not happening, it's time you let somebody else take a charge. I don't know who the somebody else is. I frankly don't know it. But if under your leadership, your firm, and why only political parties? Take any corporate, take any entity, take a captain of the Indian cricket team or any team for that matter. If team is constantly failing to win, not once, not twice, not 1 month, not 1 year, over 10 years, 90% time you are failing, isn't it logical to think that please step away and let somebody else do the job?
But
and that's somebody could be from Congress. There's no problem in it.
But Rahul Gandhi did step away from the post, and
but
he hasn't taken over.
I'm not talking about Rahul Gandhi. I'm talking about the leadership under which those last 10 years elections are being fought. That leadership has failed in 90% of the elections. That's the hard fact. Now, whoever was the leader, the morality or strategic sense tells you that should step away and let somebody else take the call.
Now, when you said divine right, there is this issue of dynastic leadership. The BJP's argument. What is your stand on dynastic leadership? Are you referring to Congress in particular?
No. See, dynasty is a reality in this country. To many of us, it might look unfortunate, but that's the fact. If you look at, again, hard fact, the data of those who get elected, bulk of them, if you look at the under 40 MPs who are part of the present parliament or were part of the previous parliament, more than 2/3 of them came from some dynasty, some sort of dynastic connection. Now, that is telling you that when it comes to electoral politics, the entry for those who does not have a dynastic background, who does not have a dynasty to back, it's becoming increasingly difficult. But that's a long-term challenge which Indian democracy has to confront. It's not an ideal situation, but we cannot wish it away in a day either, because it's not limited only to Congress, though it is largely attributed to Congress. Other parties are also equally, if not more, at fault. But some things, these are things that evolve, then they self-correct, and that's people like us would believe that in due course there will be some effort to correct this thing, where more and more younger people who get elected are coming from some kind of family which had a connection with political ecosystem.
Now, you are advising Mamata Banerjee.
No, I'm not advising Mamata.
Okay, what is the role you play?
I'm not playing any role. See, another problem with media, I'm sorry to say this, whatever you say on record is completely discounted and discarded. What you have not said is something what media is constantly
So what is your role with that you play?
So I said after post-Bengal election that I'm quitting what I was doing. And I'm actually not doing. If you go and check with IPAC, the organization I used to work with, I have gone and visited any one of the IPAC offices maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 6-7 months. My desire is to see if a political formation could be put together that is effective, that strengthen this space of the 60%, which is not with the ruling dispensation. And towards that, I meet people, but largely I'm sitting at home doing nothing.
But take a look at Mamata Banerjee. There is her nephew, Abhijit Banerjee, coming in.
Abhishek
Banerjee. What is your view about that? There is again a dynastic succession with the BJP's...
No, I've already said this, that the whole issue of dynastic politics is not and could not be attributed only to Congress. It is there in every party. But since Congress has been the ruling party for long in this country, they take the bulk of the blame game. Actually, data and number again suggest that why the bulk of the blame lies with them, because they are probably their share of those who represent dynasty is much more compared to other parties. But this is not to say that other parties are not having dynastic leaders.
No. So what is your view about Abhishek Banerjee? Because
Abhishek Banerjee, when I have been working with TMC, the control and command of TMC is 100% with Mamata Banerjee. She's a hands-on leader. I don't think anybody, and this question was asked before the elections as well, that whether it is Abhishek Banerjee and Prashant Kishor who are running the show. Actually, that's not the case. It was Mamata Banerjee who was running the show, and to the best of my understanding, she continues to run the show of TMC. Abhishek Banerjee is one of the most important leaders of the party, and that's how I look at it.
What does he bring to the table?
What does he brings to the table? It is for the party to decide, but definitely he's a 3-time MP, and I believe he's also now the General Secretary of the party. So he is supposed to bring his publicly stated position is to help party expand beyond Bengal.
Now, Mamata Banerjee has been expanding or spreading her wings. We've seen what's happened in Goa, Meghalaya, Assam, Tripura. Is she trying to become, is the TMC going to be the new INC, the Indian National Congress?
Well, that is only time can tell. But this so-called quote-unquote expansion is also being overhyped. If you look at hard fact, it amounts to 4 or 5 Lok Sabha seats. So much being talked about Congress being the only force, the present Congress being the only force that is taking BJP. You know what is the strike rate of Congress against BJP in the last Lok Sabha? 4%. For every 100 seats that Congress fought vis-a-vis straight with BJP, they won only 4 seats. The Lok Sabha number what they have, the bulk of the number comes from their victory in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala and Punjab, where they were not facing BJP. So this argument has got no legs that this Congress is able to fight BJP, because yes, they are fighting BJP, but they are not winning anything. Their win record vis-a-vis BJP in the seat where they are taking BJP head-on is 4% in last Lok Sabha, and it was 6% in 2014 Lok Sabha. Now you have got 2 chances, and if out of those 200, 300 seats, somebody is saying, okay, allow somebody else to try in 10 seats or 15 seats or 20 seats, what is irrational about it? What is so wrong in it?
Well, the fact that she's poaching largely the Congress people who are coming from there.
Now, see this again, poaching thing. Do you think people at this level, you have been a senior journalist, ex-chief minister, ex-MPs, they can be poached if they don't want? People leave. If suppose Mamata Banerjee wants today to poach people from BJP, will she be able to do it? If Congress wants to poach people from, say, TMC in West Bengal, can they do that? Look at West Bengal. BJP was able to poach a lot of people from TMC pre-election. Post-election, what is happening is the reverse. Why? Because largely this sifting of people is a reflection of where people are seeing more or better opportunity. It's not a function of you or me or Mamata Banerjee or Rahul Gandhi or for that matter any individual trying to bring people. People will come only if they see some hope, if they see better political future there for themselves. So you cannot poach anybody if you do not offer a better political proposition, because these are hard, not politicians, seasoned politicians. They are not coming to you just because somebody has asked them to move.
So what is Mamata Banerjee's game plan?
No, what is Mamata Banerjee's game plan? Only Mamata Banerjee can explain.
What do you see is...
But I do see it is quite possible that a party like Trinamool or NCP or YSRCP, those whose roots could be found back in Congress idea, the space, the ideology, if some of them, they put their act together, either on their own or coming together, they could very well emerge as a possible alternative.
Now,
possible alternative to the present Congress formation. And this is not a new phenomena. If it has happened in Congress, it has happened at least 3 or 4 times in their long history. It has happened last time when Indiraji did it. She came out and she made the Congress, and that Congress became the biggest Congress. When she broke from the Congress of that time, bulk of the established leaders of Congress remained with the quote-unquote original Congress. So this Congress, what we have is a Congress I. Theoretically speaking, because Indiraji is Indiraji, I'm not trying to compare her with anybody, but what I'm trying to say is that theoretically that possibility exists. Anybody can create a new Congress. Again, I can't repeat this enough, the space. And in that space, if someone becomes bigger than the present Congress, obviously you will see some shifting.
Now, but come to the point of this. The fact is that maybe, I mean, from what we read of what Mamata Banerjee said, she would like opposition unity, that wherever the strengths of the regional parties are there, she would rather retain those strengths. So in some senses, whether it is Stalin in Tamil Nadu, whether it is Jagan Reddy in Andhra, whether it is KCR, Chandrasekhar Rao in Telangana, whoever is strong in that particular region, let them fight as it is, and then let us unite as an opposition, whether it's Pawar in Maharashtra. The fact is, the argument seems to be heading is that let the sum of the parts make the whole. So therefore, they can become a formidable opposition to this. Will that work against the BJP?
No, it will not.
What will work?
It will not work.
And why?
I have been on record on saying this. Again, this whole notion that everyone coming together will create a very formidable opposition to defeat BJP. The first part is correct. If everyone comes together, it will look or it would appear to be far more formidable opposition than what it would look if they are not united, quote unquote. But that's not necessarily the recipe for winning the election vis-a-vis BJP. We have seen it in many states. In Assam, there was a Mahagathbandhan that has been defeated. We have seen it in UP where BSP, SP and other parties came together. They were defeated. So one has to look at what has happened and learn from it. Merely coming together of many parties is not a sure shot recipe of success against the present BJP. Yes, it could make you appear a bit more formidable or maybe formidable opposition, but it's not the recipe for the for the victory against BJP. For that, you need the face, you need the narrative, and then comes the arithmetic which people see in form of united opposition.
Coming to the point, you said you need a leader.
Yes.
Who's that leader that you see in the horizon that can take on the formidable challenge that BJP poses?
I really don't know. I don't have this wisdom, and I say.
What
this,
about Mamata Banerjee?
No, I'm coming to it. I say this to many people in private conversation also, that this is an unnecessary exercise to trying to find out who is the leader. Assume that we are sitting and having this interview in 1973-74. With all our wisdom, could any one of us be able to forecast that there will be a leader called JP who would unite and who will become the face of opposition? If we were having this conversation, say in 1985, 1986, do you think we would have been able to foresee that there will be BP Singh who will become the face? If we were having this conversation, say in 2010-11, do you think we would have been able to say that Mr. Modi would be the face? So this whole debate that let's first identify the face, till the face is found, you cannot have a challenger, that's a misunderstanding. Look at the three biggest U-turns or the episodes on which Modi government has taken back step. First was the land acquisition bill. The protest was not led by, can we recall any face that led that protest? No. The second was CAA NRC, on which they haven't moved forward, at least, if not, they have not repealed it, but they have not moved ahead. Can we recall any leader who can be credited that because of XYZ leadership, government was forced to take the step back? And as recently as few days back, when they have gone back on the farm law, do we know any one individual who can be credited? So what I'm saying is, if you have the right issues, you build the narrative, face will emerge. But if you keep waiting and saying that no, till we find a face there, we can't do anything, that's not the right way to go about it.
Now, it's good that you mentioned about the CAA protests, the farmers' repeal. If you see these movements, they're somewhat spontaneous in their emergence. And is there also a message to the political class that a lot of sections are fed up with them, they'd rather take issues onto the streets and do it themselves? Is that a larger message you're getting, that the opposition in some senses have failed them, they do it themselves?
Well, it's part of democracy. I wouldn't say necessarily as people seeing it as a failure of opposition. I would see that there are issues on which people take the matters in their own hand rather than trusting or letting their democratic interface, which the political parties are, to do the job. But more important than that, you have to see in the three things. One common thing is people-led. Another is the consistency with which the fight was done. It was not won in one day. It was not won in 1 month. Look at farm protest. It's going on for 1 year. So you have to have that will and stamina and determination to stay put till it happens. You cannot just imagine that I'm doing a tweet followed by then a press conference followed by few candle marches here and there, and government should be on its knees. It's not going to happen. You go back and look at Gandhi's protest, Mahatma Gandhi's protest. One of the unique features about his protests were it was never for 1 day or 2 days. It will go on for 20 days, 1 month, 5 months, 6 months, 1 year. It's such a vast country. You cannot create impact by simply being agitated or appear to be agitated or concerned for 1 day. Even in case of, look at the political history of likes of Mamata Banerjee. She sat on dharna 21 days. When Congress leadership did it in UP, they stayed put in case of Hathras or even in the recent case of Lakhimpur. We saw some result.
But you did tweet on Lakhimpur that you said that this is, just making this doesn't make a party.
Because we have this tendency, we have, as a nation, I think...
There are no quick fixes, to quote you.
No quick fixes. Because as a nation, we have moved in this 2020 mode. Everything needs to be settled in 1 day. Everything has to be yes or no. There is no space for any nuanced argument. Either you are Bhakt of Modi or you are Bhakt of Rahul Gandhi. There cannot be a space of any between. If you are out there to defeat BJP, you have to be Bhakt of Rahul Gandhi. If you are against Congress, then you have to be Bhakt of Modi. This is what is weakening the opposition. You have to be ready for nuanced understanding, nuanced arguments, and the formations that could be multi-layered, rather than just saying कि मैं ही हूँ जी और मेरे नाम पे आप तैयार हो जाइए और हम ही करेंगे बस, जब तक होगा आज हो 10 साल के बाद हो मैं ही करूंगा. This whole WhatsApp university culture, as we say, कि भाई सब कुछ बस 2 ही लाइन में लिखा हुआ है, कोई उस पर समय नहीं लगाना चाहता है, कोई देखना नहीं चाहता है, कोई उसको पढ़ना नहीं चाहता है. आप बता दीजिए भाई आप मोदी के खिलाफ हैं कि उनके पक्ष में हैं. आप राहुल अगर मोदी के खिलाफ हैं तो यू हैव टू बी विथ राहुल गांधी. अगर आप राहुल जी के पक्ष में हैं तो यू हैव टू बी अगेंस्ट मोदी. दिस बाइनरी is what is hurting opposition, or for that matter anywhere where you are looking at credible solution. Some of these challenges are big and complex. Their answers could not be found into binaries. कि अच्छा राहुल गांधी नहीं होंगे तो ममता बनर्जी होंगी, ममता बनर्जी नहीं होंगी तो शरद पवार होंगे. ऐसा नहीं है. Maybe all 3 of them are needed, but in a formation that is different than what it is today. That is the point.
Now, since you were mentioning Rahul Gandhi, and earlier you said about leadership and the fact that the Congress has not won under his leadership as well. And his,
no, I have not said under his leadership,
but under the Gandhi family, let's put it that way. Now, if Rahul Gandhi, would you call him a defeated general that has to move out?
Well, so again, let me put things in perspective. I've looked at data last 40 years. And then I've looked at the Congress win record under Sonia Gandhi ji, because she has been the longest serving Congress president, like 25 years. Her strike rate, electoral strike rate, works out to be somewhere around 31-32%. So under Sonia Gandhi's leadership, Congress has won 1/3 of all the elections that they fought. When Rahul Gandhi was the president, his strike rate was same, slightly better, around 34-35%. But the problem is when there is now, since 2019, their strike rate has gone down to 10%, less than 10 or 11%, I believe. When no one knows who is the leader, when you don't know who is the leader, that is the problem.
So you're essentially saying the Gandhi family should go?
No, I'm not saying that.
Because
what I said is you need to change the formation. You can be there, but sometimes the realignment or the rearrangement of the formation could make you far better, because this present formation is certainly not working. And this is not my assessment, this is the fact. The present formation, the way in which it is organized, they are very unlikely to be dramatically successful in next few years electorally against BJP.
So let's take the Congress. For the moment, keep aside the leadership. The fact is the Congress party is, if you take a look at the number of Lok Sabha segments that they have, they're probably in direct competition with BJP in 102 seats or more. The fact that they are a major sort of force in terms of the opposition, how would you incorporate are you going to fight? Would you advise any combination to ignore the Congress when then you'll split the opposition votes?
I am one of those who believe that Congress has got huge intrinsic strength on the ground. The idea and the space that Congress was supposed to represent and occupy remains formidable on the ground. It's a question of how do you bring together and convert that in electoral success. So I'm a firm believer that there is no scope for any third party to go on to challenge the BJP in a real term at India level, unless you take that space what you're talking about, represented today by Congress, led by the present leadership. But in the same voice, I'm also saying that you need to have a different formation.
Now you also talked of the BJP earlier in a private conversation which leaked to the media, that the BJP is a formidable force, it's not going away in a hurry. Why do you say that?
Yeah, this leaking business is a new way of raising the TRP. Then nothing got leaked. It was a conversation I was having in Goa, Museum of Goa, where people were asking 90-minute conversation. Someone probably recorded part of it and put it in media. The question was that why we are not able to defeat BJP. And when BJP will be defeated. My answer to that was that you cannot wish away BJP as a political force, because first of all you have to see what has brought them here. It's a long body of work by generations of people over last 50-60 years that has started with Jansang, maybe even before. Now you cannot wish, and now after 60-70 years of fight, whether you agree or you don't agree, that's your call. But they have arrived with 30-35% vote. It is quite possible that they will lose elections, one or many. I repeat, it is quite possible that they lose election. But that does not mean that BJP as a political force is or could be wished away. Once you have this big an organization which gets 30% plus vote at India level, that political organization cannot be wished away. And that is the point I made. I did not say that next 30-40 years BJP is going to rule.
You said center of Indian politics.
I'm saying yes, they are going to be the center of Indian politics for at least next 30-40 years, whether they win election or they lose election. As it was in the case of Congress. Congress lost many elections post 1967, but the politics of India was largely in and around Congress, whether you are with Congress or you are against Congress, because Congress enjoyed that 30-35% plus vote share at pan-India level. The same analogy and same thing applies to BJP. And in that, I also added that any individual who thinks that, it's just a matter of time that BJP will just disappear, they are making a huge mistake. If you are opposed to them, that's a choice which you make. If you are opposed to them, you have to be prepared for a long-term political battle to convince people that you present a better proposition than what BJP is offering on the table. It cannot be done in a hurry. There is no quick fix to it.
And what were the big takeaways that TMC in its victory gave? What are the big takeaways while dealing with the BJP?
Well, you can't be defensive. You cannot start too late, and you can't be complacent. You have to accept what did happen with TMC in 2019 Lok Sabha. They were not probably willing to accept that BJP is a formidable electoral force in Bengal. See, there is no problem in accepting the strength of your opposition. So long you are determined to defeat and you know how to, then only you know how to defeat it.
You didn't even talk of the polarization. What was the counter she was able to do on this?
See, I have said this on record. Polarization was a factor, and the reason BJP has got 38% vote, a bulk of that is because of this religious-based polarization. But polarization has a limit. I've been saying this in some of the interactions I have had of late. We have looked at data and we have found that polarization has a limit of 50-55%. It is very difficult to polarize any community on religious issues beyond 50-55%. And that largely has held on in Bengal as well.
How would you see, since UP, Uttar Pradesh is going to the polls in February, how would you see the formation there and the fact that you have someone like Yogi Adityanath who's seen as the hardline Hindutva? What difference that would make to the voting behavior?
Well, I have already said, no matter who is the face and what the events are that are quote-unquote seen as polarizing face or polarizing events, it has got its limitations. Having said that, rather than talking about what will happen in UP in terms of electoral outcome, I don't want to get into that guesswork. What I would like to mention as a substantive point, that UP election results are not going to necessarily reflect what is going to happen in 2024. Because a lot of people are getting into this trap that whatever happens in UP will set the tone for 2024.
Including Amit Shah said that. Yes.
He might have said this, but I put a counter to it, and I will give you the data again. 2012, I just want all those who think that the UP election in 2022 is the most important factor, I want them to take a pause and reflect what happened in UP in 2012. In 2012, BJP was number 3rd or number 4th party in UP. UP was swept by SP. But that had got no implication in 2014 elections. So if that was true, why are you saying that whatever happens in 2022 will happen in 2024? It suits BJP to say that whatever happens in UP, that means 2024 is done.
What would the opposition need to do if they had to start now to win this, to at least pose a formidable challenge to the BJP?
Get the 4 levers right. You have to have the messenger, the face, you have to have the message, the narrative, you have to have the mechanics, which is you call united opposition or the political parties, and along with the machinery, probably you need to add one more layer of mechanics, which is to have this quick, rapid response to take on BJP, whether it is messaging, whether it is political tactics on the ground. If you get these 4 right, you can put a challenge to them. There's no two way about it.
Which means you have to start planning when? The fact is,
like yesterday, you should have started yesterday.
And what should be your long term? It should be 2024, 2029. What would you say if you were advising a political party to go?
See, 2 years is not a short time. So I wouldn't give up on 2024. But if you really want to take BJP, somebody has to have a long-term approach, 7 to 10 years, because you might defeat them with one combination that comes together in 2024. But for you to hold on to that ground, you need to constantly strengthen these 4 elements and the 4 levers or the 4 buckets, whatever you want to call it.
And where is BJP vincible? I mean, where is the vulnerability that you see in the BJP? It looks like a huge behemoth. It seems very organized.
But actually they are not.
Okay.
You see, wherever they have faced a tough political challenge, they haven't been able to necessarily steamroll everyone as it appears. They have been able to steamroll largely Congress, because their strike rate against Congress is now in 95-96%. But their strike rate vis-a-vis other parties are not that great. If you look at the eastern and southern India, starting from Bihar, go down to the Kerala. So you start with Bihar, West Bengal, Orissa, United Andhra, which is Andhra and Telangana, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. This roughly 200 seats. BJP is limited to 54 seats. So they have got 17 seats in Bihar, they have got 18 in West Bengal, they have got 12 in Orissa, 4 to best of my recall in Telangana, no in Tamil Nadu and no in Andhra. So this tells you that almost 40% of Lok Sabha seats, BJP has not been able to penetrate as much as they would have liked it, despite not having formidable united opposition. In these areas, individual parties, individual leaders or their setup has been able to withstand the onslaught, if you want to call it, the political onslaught unleashed by BJP in last 10 years.
Coming to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, how would you've advised him in the early days before he became, what is your sense of his USPs? What makes him what he is?
No, I said this in many of my, because this is the first question that people ask me, what is his strength? I think he has many strengths. Obviously, it's like, it's given. Anyone who has become the Prime Minister and at this level of a country like India has to have many strengths. What to my mind makes, if I have to pick one or two, it would be first the unique experience mix he brings on the table. So if you look at his last 50 years, the journey, 15 years as a RSS Pracharak, he probably had the best opportunity to understand, interact, engage with the masses in a social setting. Then another 15 years as a political organizer when he was in BJP handling organizational issues. He had the experience of managing, putting together, preparing the political setup the way it should be done. And then 15 years of as the Chief Minister and now the Prime Minister. Now, if you put this 45 year of experience mix, it literally is unique in India. As I look around, I don't find any other individual. There might be some, I don't know, but not that comes to my mind prominently, who has this kind of experience mix in terms of understanding of society right at the grassroots level firsthand, running the political organization and running the government. What it does is it makes him literally second guess what people want, either in his speech or schemes or government response. This is, a lot of people tell that he can literally second guess. But that's the symptom. The real issue, he is able to second guess because of this unique professional experience he has, 45 years. Plus, add to this, he's a very patient listener. So for all what you see on the television, he's a great listener. He has this ability to listen to as many people as possibly could be heard on any issues, and that probably gives him the advantage to benefit from all points of views. He can still make a mistake, and he has made many mistakes, but I'm saying that I would rate as one of his advantages.
Prashant Kishor, thank you so much. You've taken a lot of time.
Thank you.
You've explained a lot of things candidly, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.